Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to show number 194 of the Arc Junkies Podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Ivan Iler. You might know him from the new Netflix special, Metal Shop Masters. Ivan is an extremely fascinating individual and an artist in every sense of the word. Ivan doesn't just build metal sculptures, though. There's so much more to his story. I had a great time chatting with him, and we got off on several tangents just because this dude is so interesting. We'll get right into it after a quick word from the supporters of the show. Today's episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast is brought to you by the Step Wedge. You all have to check these things out. The Step Wedge was designed and patented by Jamison Burt, a triple-ticketed journeyman pipe welder out of Canada. He's designed and manufactured the best wedges to set your gaps. Whether you're a pipe hand, structural fabricator, ornamental worker, or you're just working at an everyday job shop, every welder and fabricator should have a set of reliable and well-built wedges in their toolbox. The Step Wedge has allowed me to get the perfect gap every time. Whether I'm setting a gap for an open route demonstration at the school for the students, or setting a gap in my shop at the house, the Step Wedge has become my favorite tool in my arsenal. Step wedges are made from hardened stainless steel, so they're not going to contaminate any of your exotic alloys. And the spatter-proof wedge, it's made of plasma nitride carbon steel, making these wedges nearly indestructible. These wedges are not only quality built, but they're priced remarkably affordable. You can pick up a wedge today for less than $40, and now you can save an additional 10% when you go to gapandtack.com and you use code word ARCJunkies in the discount box at checkout. Head on over to Gap and Tack right now to take advantage of this great deal. That's gapandtack.com. 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 Wedges made for professionals. We're also brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. Rockmount makes some of the coolest electrodes you never knew existed. Check out their website, rockmountwelding.com, and review the full list of consumables to include specialty welding rods and wires for dissimilar metals, cast steels and cast irons, special alloys, and even rods for unidentifiable steels. They also have a full line of hard facing and surfacing products to protect, rebuild, and repair all of those attachments that keep wearing down. And while you're there, make sure to check out their selection of burr bits, grinding discs, drill bits, and saw blades. And now, Rockmount's made it even easier to get their products delivered to your business. Hop on over to mscdirect.com and purchase your Rockmount products directly through their website and get free shipping on all orders of Rockmount products. Rockmount has a solution for every welding problem you're facing right now. And if you're not sure what you need, just give them a call and talk to a live person that knows welding at 1-800-272-7637. Rockmount rods are designed to weld stronger and last longer than typical electrodes. So find out your solution today at rockmountwelding.com. We're also brought to you by Everlast Welders. There's a storm coming. Everlast just released their new multi-process welding machine, the all-new Storm 215 IC. The new Everlast Storm is an all-in-one MIG, stick, and plasma machine. The Storm 215 IC is capable of 200 amps for MIG welding, 160 amps for stick welding, and 40 amps for plasma cutting. And the best part is, you can pre-order your Storm right now at everlastwelders.com for the low introductory price of $13.99, and your machine's going to ship before the holidays. Now is the perfect time to pull the trigger on that new multi-process machine you've been waiting for. And don't forget to use code word ARCJunkies in the comment section at checkout when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal, and you'll get that Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade absolutely free. We're also brought to you by Fronius USA. Right now, Fronius has teamed up with the Arc Junkies Podcast once again to bring the listeners another badass deal to up their welding game. For the month of October, you can head over to shopweldingsupplies.com/ArcJunkies and pick up a Transsteel 2200 and a free Phaser 1000 welding hood and an 045 aluminum consumables pack to include liner and contact tips. This bundle is a $500 value. The Transsteel 2200 is a machine built for everyone, from the home hobbyist to the light and medium fabricator to maintenance welders and general contractors. The Transsteel 2200 is a multi-process MIG, TIG, and stick machine, all on a dual voltage platform. You can run this bad boy off 110 or 220, and it's super simple to use. Just set your wire type and diameter, your gas mix, and material thickness, and you're off to the races. The Transsteel 2200 has a 24 MIG variation including aluminum, silicon bronze, metal cord, and many more, and it's generator friendly. You can use it in your fab shop or take it out into the field and run it off your generator. And with the included aluminum package, you get easy feed aluminum without clunky spool gun attachments. So check out the Transsteel 2200 today from shopweldingsupplies.com/ArcJunkies and get your free hood and consumables kit before the deal ends October 31st. All right, you know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast. Helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. Now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, so Ivan, what's going on, man? How's things?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad at all.
I binge watched Metal Shop Masters prior to going to FabTech because I've been a longtime friend of Stephanie's. She kind of told me that, you know, she was working on this Netflix deal and they recorded a bunch of episodes and she couldn't talk about it. And I kept counting down the days to where I could watch this show. And then finally, you know, I think after 3 or 4 revisions or whatever, Netflix finally came up with a date. So I locked it into my calendar. And then I binge watched it right before I went up to FabTech, and that's how I found out about you and your work. And you do some really cool stuff. So I wanted to get you on the show because it's, you know, the type of work that you do is very inspirational. You know, the fact that, especially with like kinesthetic sculptures, I thought that was kind of neat that, you know, because they move, they have like, you bring sculptures to life.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's what I love to do more than anything, really. I mean, make all kinds of stuff, but the kinetics is definitely that's my passion, trying to mimic motions in nature and stuff.
It's really cool. And then that was one of the things I asked, like, or one of the things I was thinking about, like when I was watching this show, it was like, what do they do with all the parts and pieces and everything that you guys built during the show? Does that, like, are they putting that on display somewhere? Does it go to the scrap bin? Do you guys get to take them home?
Well, in all honesty, a lot of the stuff, like, I have no idea what they do with that. I heard that a couple of people, some of the producers were like fighting over who got to keep what for some of the things, but then like the bigger pieces, like the mobiles that we built, like, you know, it was go. And so they were actually, like, as we were walking through after building those, we were watching them, like, you know, like chopping them apart with a sawzall, tossing them aside. So I was like, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, none of us are really like super proud of the stuff we're doing anyways, because don't have enough time to actually do anything really great. So It's kind of like, like on one hand, it's like, oh, but on the other hand, it's like, who cares? Yeah,
because I mean, like, well, first question is, where was the sawzall when you were taking apart the organ or the piano?
Right.
Like, where was that part at? I seen you like cutting it apart with a drill bit.
Oh yeah, that was a pain. That was a nightmare. That was the whole thing. It was basically like, you know, we have this many tools to do the jobs with. And everybody has to have the same tools. I mean, they wouldn't even let me bring my Leatherman on the show. It was literally like, you all have to have the exact same tools, so it's fair across all boundaries. And they didn't think about the fact that they were going to be using some scrap stuff. And so, they toss in a piano, and all we have is these metalworking tools. And it's like, okay, now what? But
you can only do so much with a grinder.
Yeah, make it work. Do what you can. Yeah.
So now I noticed that they give you 10 hours to do that stuff. But did you really have 10 hours? Because like I've heard stories of like, in the middle of your build, you know, you kind of get pulled away to go do the interview process, and they're like kind of picking your brain and all that stuff in real time while you're working on it. So, I mean, do you get actually like 10 true hours? Yeah,
10 true hours. Yeah. So basically, if they pulled you away like that, they'd stop the clock for you.
Okay.
And so, like, as you were getting pulled away and everybody else was still working, then, you know, they'd enter you for a half hour or whatever it was, and then they could edit that down. And so while you were doing that, they just, you know, tag a half hour on at the end. So it was basically everybody. We all had the same amount of time on everything.
Okay.
I kept it tight. It was, I mean, that's the one thing about the show that I think anybody who watches the show, if you like it whatsoever, like, go find Seven, go find Luis, go find Ray, go find Frank, go find Leah. Leah's stuff is amazing, by the way. But I mean, like, everybody that was on the show, if you go and find them and actually look at their stuff, like, go find them on social media, you're going to see something that you didn't get to see on the show, because it was literally the worst of all of our work. And that's what's getting like nationally televised or worldwide televised. And so it's, you know, on one hand, it was a great opportunity and a great experience, but it's still like, when you can see what these people are capable of without a time frame, I mean, there's some really outstanding work. There's some really talented people there on that show.
Yeah, I've had Ray on the podcast, and like the work she did on the Apache truck that she did. And then I think like that 1943 car, like, she's literally a human CNC plasma cutter, and she doesn't like freehand draw anything, or she doesn't like use stencils or templates or anything like that. It's all grab the plasma torch and just start making cuts. Yeah, and it's exactly, like that in it itself is a talent, you know, because like I was talking to Sean Flotman, Dabs Wellington, and we said the same thing. You know, we'd go through there and make some artwork, and the next thing you know, the fender would fall off. Like, now you've lost that piece. Yeah. Like, But I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
She like the level of work that she does is just insane, and the stuff that you do, like I seen the blacksmith guy that you did in episode 1, and I thought that was just, I was like, damn, that's freaking badass. That's really cool. They said they had to have one moving part, and I think you had like 7 or 8 different hinge points to make this thing operate and move and stuff like that. And I think that's really cool how you you bring art to life.
Yeah, well, I mean, with that one, it was really just, what they asked us to do is they asked us to build an avatar. And so I figured, well, if you're building an avatar of yourself, trying to make a sculpture, they want it to move and they want it to say something about who you are, what you do. So I thought, well, I'll just make myself building myself. And that would be a way to do that. But at the same time, I only had so much time to get this stuff ready before the show. And then you only had so much time to get the thing to work and get it together. And I didn't even have the cams made up. I had to do all that like on the show, just grinding them down and trying to get it to work right. And it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was nerve-wracking. I honestly was thinking on that very first episode, like I might not get this to work. Like I might have just stabbed myself in the foot.
But
because I mean, it'd be an easy kickoff if it's like, oh, well, this one's not finished, so he's the guy we got to let go. Yeah,
right. But it worked out in your favor, man. The whole thing turned out right. And like what you were saying is like, that 10-hour, time frame that you had to get something done isn't a direct reflection of the type of work that you do, because the elephant sculpture that you did, that thing looks badass.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And the fact that like, where are you, like, most of your sculptures located?
Well, when it comes to the kinetic stuff, the things that I really like to do, they kind of spread all over. There's a lot of them I would build for Scrap Fest, which is a show in Lansing that happens once a year. And so they just get auctioned off. So some of them are in people's backyards, but where I make most of my money is actually like in large public sculptures. So like down by the Capitol of Michigan, I've got a big one there. I've got one by the Lansing Airport, one up in Big Rapids, one in Baldwin. That's the world's largest brown trout. That one's up there. And so that's where I make a lot of my money and do a lot of my really large pieces. But the thing is when you're dealing with public sculptures, you don't want to put too much kinetics into them, because then they got a lot of maintenance and a lot of things that can go wrong over time. And so they need a lot of work done to them. So it's more along the lines of like, those are the things that I love to do just because I love to do them. But one of the nice things about this show is that's the stuff I really want to do. That's what I love to do. But they're not the kind of thing that I was able to really make a living at before. And I think with the show being out now, I'll be able to just kind of build what I want to build and then just go, okay, this one's done. It's for sale now.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll be able to find a buyer, and that way I can just kind of keep building what I want to build and growing on that and getting better at the kinetic stuff, because that's really what I love to do and what moves me forward. And I'd like to be able to get better and better at that.
Yeah. The one piece you did with, it's like a man's head and like all the different gears and everything, and you kind of spin that. I thought that was, I mean, because that's a massive sculpture. Like how big is that, like lengthwise?
Lengthwise, it's 35 feet long.
Okay, I was going to say, it's got to be like 25, 30 feet. I mean,
it's pretty long, yeah.
That's impressive as hell. And the fact that like you can actually walk up there and hand crank it and get everything to move. And that's very cool. Now, like, do you do the maintenance on these things, or like do you have to like get with the county and be like, okay, here's all the grease points, the hinge points, here's replacement parts, here's a parts list, if this goes out? Or
I mean, essentially it's just really what it boils down to is if something goes wrong, they're going to give me a call and then I'll have to go and fix it. One of the things that happened was I had, because that big head, it's down by bars and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking somebody must have stuffed something in between some of those gears, which they would have had to get on somebody's shoulders to do it. Those gears are huge and they're way up off the ground, so I mean, like higher than a basketball hoop, those first gears coming out of that head. But somebody got up there and stuffed something in those gears and then grabbed a hold of that crank and started turning it to try and run something through there for fun. I'm guessing some drunk guy on a weekend. Yeah. And they snapped a pin off and the crank and all kinds of stuff. So I had to come up with like a pressurized like slip clutch for the crank, and then went and installed that so that essentially if anything binds those gears or stops those gears from moving, then it can just slip on that handle. So the handle will just slip until whatever it is pull out, and then it'll keep working. That way nothing can get broke off there. So you do what you can and kind of see what happens, and then fix it if it breaks. Yeah.
Damn. Now, so do you do like commission based? Like if somebody wanted to buy like a sculpture, do you do stuff like that, or is it more like here's my vision, here's what I want to build. You can purchase it or you cannot.
I mean, yeah, really what it is I do commission stuff, but it has to be the kind of thing where somebody will come to me and tell me, like, you know, well, like, for example, with the public artwork, I'm doing, what I'm doing is I'm responding to RFPs. So an RFP is a request for a proposal. And anybody who's out there looking to do this kind of work or wanting to do something like this, just look into like local arts councils, things like that. And they'll put out these RFPs. So what'll happen is a company will go, or a city or municipality or whoever is going to go, okay, we want a sculpture, we have this much money. They'll give that information to one of these arts councils, and the arts councils will then put out this RFP, which is just saying, we have a request for proposals out. There's this much money, we want a piece of art. And then you're just designing a piece of art for how much money they have and where they want to put it. So, and then you essentially, the nice thing about that is, like in contracting, if you're trying to get a bid, they'll say, this is exactly what we want and who can do it the cheapest. And so you're trying to cut each other's throats, and you always end up kind of cutting your throat. And with something like this, it's like, we have this much money. So you can't underbid each other. It's literally just who has the best idea. So you're getting to design the pieces that you're building, and they just pick whatever one they like the most. So that's like a real plus for me, because, I mean, one, you can literally pick your profit margin at that point. You can say, this is how much it's going to cost me to make something like this. So this is how much money I'll make off it. Is it worth it to me? And the other thing is, I don't really want to build something that somebody else has designed. For me, part of the fun is like creating something that I want to make. So if somebody came to me and said, this is exactly what I want and exactly how I want it, I'd probably say no. But if somebody came to me and said, I have this much money and I want something vaguely like this, or something to represent this, or something that feels like this, or something to, you know, pay homage to that, and then let me design it to do that the way that I want to do that, then yeah, that's more my speed.
So you want more like free reign as the artist and like your vision and how you want it portrayed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's just like anything. You put too many, you know, like, what's the old saying, too many captains, not enough sailors, something like that.
Yeah.
If you got a bunch of people trying to put their hat in the ring and say, this is what we want and how we want it to look, and everybody's trying to make designs and changes on something, then at the end of the day, you just have like a chimera of nothing. And it's just, it shows, you know, if you can design something and build it the way you want to build it, there'll be a passion behind that, and there'll, you know, be a vision behind that, and you'll end up with something a lot nicer. I've had sculptures before that I've done that were huge public sculptures, and I'm not going to, you know, name names because I don't want to, like, you know, put myself out there or talk bad about anybody, but there's some pieces that I've done before that were worth a lot of money, and they didn't end up being anything I was proud of.
I got
because
you.
there's a lot of people going, oh, what if we did this? Or what if we changed that? Or, hey, I've got an idea. What if we did this and spun this around and made that look like this and that? And yeah, that's great. And it's like, oh, this is not great.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of stuff that I've done in construction. It's like, I'm not proud of it, but the customer got what they wanted, and I got paid for it. And
exactly,
you know, life goes on, and I'll do better on the next one, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how did you get into like sculpting? Because I know like, and I want to talk about all this, but I know that you've done like tattoo work in the past. You've done leather work in the past, like painting. I mean, like, you are an artist in every sense of the word. So how did you get into like metal sculpting? I mean, did you start off like as a kid, like, you know, drawing, or like, I mean, how did all this unfold to, you know, where you are today?
Yeah, well, in all honesty, yeah, I was, you know, poor growing up, and you know, I always loved making things and building things, creating things, and you know, college wasn't in the cards. And I mean, even when I was a little kid, I was always pulling things apart, fixing things, but again, wanting to build things, create things. I mean, I took a piece of plywood at one point in time when I was in, God, I don't know, must have been third or fourth grade, and you know, took a bunch of golf balls and some bamboo sticks that were growing in the yard out in New Mexico, and like made myself a pool table. It's just, I wanted to make things. You know, I was always trying to make things, create things, build things, and so really where the welding started was when I was around 15 or 16 years old. I got a summer job. It was like a keep kids out of trouble for the summer kind of program. And so I was making some money as a janitor doing that, and I bought this old Honda CB750. So I was building this motorcycle, and I was like, well, I want to chop this frame down and do all this framework to it, and so I need to learn how to weld. So went to the teacher at the high school who taught the metal class, and kind of made up a little lie. I said like, oh, I know how to use this stuff, but I don't have access to any of it. Do you mind if I just come in after school? You know, and at the time I was in like junior high, but He was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Yeah, no problem. And I think he knew right off the bat that I had no idea what I was doing, but he, he was a nice enough guy. He just let me screw around. Plus, I think it was just kind of, he got a kick out of some kid being, so excited about doing the stuff. But yeah, he just let me screw around and figure out how to do it. And I mean, after that, I just, I got a welder on layaway, literally at Tractor Supply. It was like a Campbell Housefield welder, and I had to pay like $10 here and there where I could until I could finally pick it up. And that was my first welder, and just kind of went from there. And I started making sculptures right off the bat too. I was building motorcycles as well, but I started making sculptures, putting them in galleries. I never sold anything, but it was just always, like I said, I've always loved to sculpt and make things and paint things, draw things. And so, it was just trying to find where I fit. And that's actually what got me into tattoos, because I was getting towards the end of high school and realized, like, okay, I'm barely graduating, but I am going to graduate. What am I going to do next? I don't have money for college, and I want to do my artwork, but I also need to make sure I can make money. And so I thought, well, tattoos is a good way to go.
Oh yeah.
I get a tattoo apprenticeship. I can go out, I can do tattoos, and that would be a way to keep the bills paid and still be able to do artwork. And so I started tattooing when I was about 17 and did that for a while, but the economy started going south, like 2008.
Mm-hmm.
People couldn't pay the rent. They weren't going to go out and get a tattoo. So tattoo shop closed down. And there was another shop in town that was kind enough to take me on, and I was there for a while. But again, it's just like, at that point, he was trying to help out enough people that there just wasn't enough space, and there still wasn't enough money coming in. So I had to walk away from that, and I went and worked at a factory. The economy got a little worse, and the factory shut down. Went and worked at another factory in Owasso. It was making like upholstery parts for cars for GM and stuff. Economy got a little worse. That factory shut down. And so next thing I knew, my car was broke down. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a job. Couldn't get the car fixed because I just didn't have any way to do that at the time. I was still pretty young. I think I was like maybe 19 or 20 by then. And so I walked down to the end of the road and got a job at a gas station. So I was making $7.50 an hour, cleaning hot dog roller grills on midnight shift. And at that point, it was like, I got nothing left to lose now. So that's when I started my motorcycle shop, started building bikes, and then just started making things out of scrap metal again, and some big stuff, and sticking it outside, and started doing Scrap Fest with a friend of mine, Ian. He roped me into that. And once we started doing that, then yeah, all of a sudden it was like, well, wait a minute, this guy over here who's also making these sculptures, he's saying he's done these public pieces, or this person's doing artwork for these people, and there's money in it there. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, okay, I can make money doing sculptures. That's really more like along the lines of what I'd like to do anyways. And so I just kind of started trying to climb that ladder and find ways to do that.
That's insane, man. And like the mental fortitude and the tenacity that was, like you never gave up. I think that's really cool. The fact that you went from, doing tattoos and to, doing into factory work and then upholstery work, and then ended up working at a freaking, a gas station cleaning roller grills at midnight, into, launching yourself into your passion. So like the underlying issue is like that passion, the drive, the determination. A lot of people get kicked in the nuts so many times, they get tired of getting kicked in the nuts, and they just walk away.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Not a hard thing to do.
Yeah. But I mean, like the mental drive and fortitude. And I mean, I think that's what sets you apart from a lot of people, is like, you never gave up. There's always, I've got to make money. I've got to provide a life for myself. And you've got a passion, you've got a dream, you want to see it through. And you just kept, taking the licks, and you kept pushing.
Well, I mean, really, that's what you have to do at the end of the day. I always figured, even when I was, just a kid, like, it's kind of like, if you could do anything you want with the rest of your life, money was not a problem whatsoever, what would you do? And then whatever the answer to that question is, do that and find a way to make money at it. Because if you're just doing something just for the money, you're going to find yourself one day, 50 years old, sitting behind a desk somewhere, or standing in a factory line going, well, I kept the bills paid, but who gives a shit about the bills? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, you're just wasting time, and you only get so much of it. So make the most of it.
Exactly. There's a lot of miserable people out there driving Porsches and BMWs and Teslas right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what's the point? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not happy, what's the point? I'd rather live in a cardboard box and be doing sidewalk chalk art than be stuck behind a desk somewhere.
Yeah. No, 100%. And that's why people like they ask me, like, if you're so good at welding, like, why are you teaching it? Well, like, why aren't you out in the field? Why aren't you making $60, $70 an hour out on the pipeline? It's like, I really enjoy teaching. Like, I get a kick out of it. Like, that's what I landed my dream job at, like, you know, age 28, you know, like, and I didn't even know that I was going to enjoy teaching. I did it just to, like, just screw it. You know, I'll get out of the heat for a couple months, and you know, I'll go give this a shot, and I'll get my professor off my back. And I fell in love with teaching. And, like, I can't see myself doing anything else right now. I love just sharing the energy and the passion and information and stuff like that. So, I mean, like, find out what you enjoy doing and, like, work towards that.
Exactly,
And like, damn everything else, you know. Figure out a way to get there.
Yeah, as it won't get you anywhere at the end of the day, I mean, if you're just chasing the money, you're never going to be happy, because the money ain't going to get you there. No. It's not going to make you happy. No, and the only way to get there is to just do what makes you happy.
Yeah, and like I said at the opening of the last podcast, is like, you know, the dollar's going to still be there tomorrow to chase it. You know, like, go out and live life. Figure it out, you know, what it is you want to do, what makes you happy. Yeah, and go do that, because you can rack up overtime next week, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
100%. That's a really, really cool way to look at it. I like your outlook on all that stuff. So, like, when you did the upholstery stuff, is that kind of like how you got into, like, doing all the leather work?
No, actually, when I was working there, that was Chieftain. When I was working there, it wasn't upholstery like you're thinking. It was like I ran a hot press. So basically, there was this giant metal press, and that would come up, and it was heated, and we'd have to grab, like, a sheet of, like, carpet with, like, plastic backing, and we have to drag it into this press and then get back out of the press before it came down. And it would come down on this big, like, 10 by 10 sheet, and it would press out a bunch of, like, backs for seats and things. And then you had to pull that out and cut out the sections and stack them up. And so it was more like molding, like form molding pieces for GM cars and stuff. But no, the leather work actually came just because of the motorcycle stuff, really. The first time I ever tooled leather was to make a motorcycle seat, just because, you know, again, the reason I started the motorcycle shop was because I liked building motorcycles. It was a way to make my art, but there was also money in it. You know, there's a market for it. So I can do metal fabrication. I can do painting. I can do metal forming, sheet metal forming. I can do leather work, tooling, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, there's a market there. So I started doing that just because I, you know, had a way to make a living at it, or at least a way to try to make a living at it. It wasn't easy at first, but so that's what got the leather tooling going, and the upholstery stuff was just for the motorcycle stuff I was doing. And then I realized there was a lot of people out there wanting to build their own motorcycles. Excuse me. So at the time, what was happening was there was a lot of stuff on TV with all the biker build-off stuff and Orange County choppers, and so all these people were out there going like, "Oh, I want to build a motorcycle." And so with that, I realized, okay, if there's all these people out there really wanting to build bikes, but a lot of them don't have a lot of money, or just aren't willing to dedicate a lot of money to it because it's just something they want to do for fun because they got the bug watching on TV. You know, they're going to go out, and if they want to do a Harley, they're going to buy an old Harley Sportster. And the reason I realized that was because of a guy out in Owasso. His name's Sportster Tom. He's a real close friend of mine. I've known him since I was 14 from that first bike I built. I met him out there. And he's just a great guy. He's been doing it since the 70s. And he was saying that he essentially bought all these like bolt-on hardtails for these old Sportsters from China, and he was trying to put them on, and I was over there helping him. We had like ratchet straps on them and stuff. We're trying to pry the pieces together to get them to fit and line up. And you know, at one point I was just like, "Tom, I could build you a better hardtail than this." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, if you can build me a better one, I'll buy it from you." And I said, "Okay." So I went and built him a better one. Yeah. And the best part was Tom would make it work even if it wasn't perfect, but at least I could see what I needed to change from there. And so it was kind of like a good like testing phase to get it figured out and get it just right, so that it was real easy to use and the best product it could be. And so I just went one after another building these hardtails for these bikes, taking them to Tom, and he'd buy them regardless. And that once I had it all figured out, then I started taking those hardtails and started selling them on eBay. And that was actually a big part of what started the bike shop. Was, you know, I had these parts that I was building, and then I was, you know, obviously I was making the leather seats and doing leather tooling and everything. And I realized, well, there's a lot of people out there asking me questions about leather tooling. They want to learn how to tool leather and stuff. So I started cutting out seat pans. I made a die for a clicker press to stamp out the leather tops, and I'd put a whole kit together. It came with a how-to DVD, and you basically just buy this kit. It would come with the leather, the pan, the foam, hammers, stamps, dies, all the tools you needed, and a DVD to show you how to do it. So all you needed was a bowl and some water, and you could make your own hand-tooled leather seat with this kit. And
Oh, damn.
I sold a bunch of those. Yeah, so I was making and selling parts for guys who wanted to build their own bikes. And then that was really what got it going. And then when COVID hit, I had to shut down the motorcycle side of the shop because money was going out the door, and I just couldn't afford to keep paying everybody that I had working for me. And so it was like, well, you can either all just stay here and wait until the shop shuts down, or you guys got to go and find other jobs, and I'll just try and keep the bills paid here. And that was that was really when I just jumped full force into the sculptures. And like I said, that's really what I wanted to do. That's what I'm passionate about. And so maybe if I'm not fixing everybody else's motorcycle, I'll be able to ride my own once in a while.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So do you still do like seats now?
No, I mean, not for customers or anything like that. I still tool leather. I still have all my stuff, and I still make seats for bikes, but it's not something that I do for like customers anymore.
Okay.
It's just based on like really, again, what I want to do and what I have to do. So if I'm making a seat, it would be more along the lines of like, hey, I'm going to make the seat for a bike that I have, or I'm going to make, anything out of leather, make a briefcase or whatever, just for the fun of doing the leather work. But there's just not a ton of money in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just end up sitting on your ass and running through the same motions over and over. And it just gets old after a while. So it was like, okay, I like this, but I like this in moderation. This is fun to do when I want to do it. I've not got the funnest thing to do for a living.
I've got a buddy, Jesse Serpan, that runs raw iron choppers up in Northeast Ohio. Nice. And that's exactly how he got into welding. Is he like bought one of these little mini bikes and stuff, and at the age of like 14, and wanted to make it into a chopper. And he wasn't doing so great in school, so he ended up taking welding class and met up with my other buddy Ryan Eubank. That's how I met Jesse, and learned the art of welding and bike building. Learned the art of welding through Ryan, and then took the passion and the knowledge from welding and transferred that into building his own custom bike. So I gotta link you two up, because he does like really cool bikes and stuff. And every once in a while, if you're up to it, he may need a seat periodically. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh yeah.
But I'll have to hook you guys up, because you do some really cool work and he does some really cool work. And, I think like networking's a big thing within this industry. It's like welding is such a small community, and it's really tight knit too.
Yeah, no, completely. Yeah. And that goes the same, like it crosses over in different ways. And that's one of the cool things about the show is doing Scrap Fest in Lansing there every year. It was one of those things where I thought, what, somebody just has to film this and put it on TV, because this is like a welding game show just for artwork. And so when they came up with this Metal Shop Masters show, and then I don't even know how the hell they found me. Like, you said, you never heard of me before. Well, nobody had. I had like 2,000 followers on Instagram. The only people that knew me were people from around Michigan because of my big public sculptures and stuff. But nobody really knew me other than that. And so the fact that I'm doing this show in Lansing, thinking it would be really cool they put this on TV, and then all the way out in Los Angeles, they actually come up with an idea to put an art show on TV, and then find me and get a hold of me. I was just like, no, this isn't real. I honestly thought they were screwing with me. Like, how did you find me? Oh, we find you on Instagram. I have 2,000 followers. You didn't find me on Instagram. I'm not falling for your fucking scam, guys.
Right.
Pardon my language, but
no,
but
I just let it rip, man.
But I just I wasn't. Yeah. And then no, we're serious. We're gonna fly out to California, and we want you to compete in the show. And so this takes something about welding that a lot of people might not even think about necessarily. Normally, when you think about welding, you think about building custom cars, building custom motorcycles, even just on the custom end of things. But then, actual fabrication, manufacturing, putting up buildings, things like that on the other end of it. But the fact that the art side of it is kind of finding its way, coming into that community is great, especially because of the fact that a lot of the people that have been reaching out to me through social media have been saying, like, I never even thought about this before, but I'm really intrigued now. Like, what do I need to do to start? Or I used to be a welder, but I'm retired, and you've got like a passion in me now for wanting to do this. And I'm back up in the garage welding things together, making little sculptures and stuff, and I'm loving it. And so it's really cool that it's sparking up this whole other side of welding and an artistic and just, like kind of a free form way. I like that.
No, that's really cool. And I was talking to my buddy Nate Bowman at FabTech, because we were talking about like, a lot of times like people think that like, people that do artwork, like metal sculpting and stuff like that, are they considered welders? And it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, they're welders because I mean like you're getting paid to change the molecular structure of steel, aluminum, stainless. You're a welder. And everybody looks at, welding as, well, I'm a structural welder. So if you're not a structural welder, you're not really a welder. Like pipe fitters, they're not really welders. So like there's this big pissing match between like who's really a welder and who's not. And it's like,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, if you make your living changing the molecular structure of metal, you're a welder. But whether you're sticking it together, cutting it apart, reforming it into whether it's a building, a pipeline, or a sculpture, at the end of the day, you're definitely a welder. I mean, now there's a lot of technical, there's a lot of technical specs that go into it, but at the end of the day, you're considered a welder.
Well, and one of the cool things too about a lot of people, I mean, there are some people who get into welding specifically just for art, but at the same time, you'll find a lot of artists in like the metalworking side of things who actually started out as a pipe welder or started out as a structural, welder. And then the thing is they just like make things on the side. I mean, I knew guys from GM that would just take pieces and parts and make the coolest little like belt buckles or whatever out of them. And there was actually an art show at the Lansing Art Gallery. What they did was they just went and found these different guys that worked for GM. They're just their day job. They're just on the factory line making stuff. But then when they go home, they're taking, and making all these different sculptures out of metal. And I went to see this show, and they were some of the most beautiful sculptures I've ever seen. And these are just, blue collar guys, but they were amazing artists. I mean, the kind of stuff that you would expect to see in New York, not in the middle of Michigan. And that's just it. Like, if you have the skill to do something and you also have artistic talent, taking and putting the two together, it's just,
Yeah, I've got a buddy that's what he does for his day job, Val Casia, and he's a plumber, pipe fitter by trade, but like in his off time, he runs his own business and he does metal fabrication, he does artwork, he does all kinds of cool stuff. He's at Leadbelly _metalworks on Instagram, but he does like ridiculously cool stuff, and. But like to look at it, the type of stuff that he does in his free time versus what he does at work, they're two separate animals, but he's got a passion for welding that shines through. Like when he goes home at the end of the day, like he takes one hood off at work and then puts another hood on when he gets home. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it revolves around your level of passion. And like Nate and I were talking about, like if you go in and weld all day and then like that's all you do, maybe you're not considered a welder. But like if you go into work and weld all day and then you come home and then you weld in your garage and like you're doing this stuff, like, yeah, I mean, you're more of a welder than most people because you're not just doing it for a paycheck. It's in your blood. It's in your heart. You're passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
I just think I get super excited about, people that are truly passionate about what they do as far, whether you're a welder, carpenter, or like, working in like finished fabric or finished carpentry work or anything like that. Like, if you're passionate about what you're doing, I mean, like, I want to see you work. I want to watch you work because those people work completely different than somebody that's just there for the paycheck.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. And it shows in the work, yeah.
And it definitely shows in the work because they take pride. They take that extra step. They don't cut the corners. They go above and beyond what's actually required or what's expected because at the end of the day, you're putting your signature on your work.
Yeah.
Like if somebody were to see your piece, you'd be like, oh shit, that looks like something that Ivan would do. And, because of the way that you do your work, like if I seen a piece from Ray Ripple, I'd be like, okay, I could just scroll through Instagram and a lot of times before, even seeing the name, I see the photo and I can pick out whose work that is based on, what the weld looks like or what the type of the work looks like. And you can pick those people apart because that's their signature. It's their legacy. They put their mark on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. Absolutely.
That's really cool. And like, not only do you do metalwork and sculpting and tattoos and leather work, but I mean, you also do music as well.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. We had kind of like a small conversation on, I think you were getting ready to do the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald by Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't done that yet. I'm going to do that this Saturday. Yeah.
You got to do that one in like Carefree Highway from Gordon
Carefree
Lightfoot.
Highway?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Because I don't know if you've heard this before, but I mean, you've definitely got a voice to be doing that type of stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, and
I appreciate that.
I say that as a joke because you've got like a very soothing voice, like for whether it's like even when you were explaining your pieces on Netflix, I was like, damn, this dude's voice is like, this is like, Morgan Freeman narration quality. Like I could see you on Discovery Channel probably within the next 5 or 6 years, like narrating, parts unknown and shit like that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah.
But like, so the music stuff, where did that come into effect? Like, cause you play guitar and sing.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same reason that I started building motorcycles. What kid doesn't want to be a rock star? What kid doesn't want to drive a Harley? It was one of those things, I was a kid and guitars were cool and I wanted to play music. And so I picked up a guitar and started playing it and started a band in high school and we played for a while. And then actually it was just after I started the shop. I was probably 23 years old at the time. And I had this idea because at the time I was listening to a lot of bluegrass music. I'm not really a big country music fan, but I love like the old timey stuff like bluegrass. And so I was listening to a lot of bluegrass, listening to a lot of punk rock too, because I always been a big fan of punk rock music. And I was like, man, these both got this walking beat. What if we stuck these two together? What if we made a punk rock bluegrass band? My buddy James is like, yeah, we could do that. I was like, okay, but we need a banjo player, and who's going to play punk rock banjo? And he had a friend that was really good at picking up any instruments, so he gave him a banjo and said like, hey, take a week and see if you could play the Foggy Mountain Breakdown. And he came back and he played it flawlessly, and it was like, okay, yeah, we got something, let's do this. And so we started this punk rock bluegrass band, Thump Keg, and we did that for a little while. And I don't know, man, playing music's fun. It's a really nice thing to do, and you can just relax and play some tunes. And I honestly, it was back when I first started putting stuff on Instagram. I was just goofing around one night and having a few drinks in the shop and just started singing, no guitar or anything, just goofing around. And as I was doing that, I posted that, and it was just back when I might get 10 likes on a post or something, and I might have got 15 on that one or something. Like, oh, look at that, people like to sing.
People like that.
I'll sing another one. And then I picked up the guitar and played one, and I just kind of went from there. Most of the ones I play nowadays are just all kind of like requests or backlog requests, but yeah, it's to just do it on the weekends, do it on Saturday or Sunday or whenever I feel like it. And
right.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually really surprised that became a thing. Even that you brought it up is funny to me because it was just
it was like it was right after I followed you that somebody had requested "Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald" by Gordon Lightfoot, and like my dad played that for me like long time ago when I was a kid, and I've always wanted to go to the Maritime Sailors Cathedral up in Michigan
Detroit.
or up in Detroit. Because like the song, I don't know, it hits different. And like if you guys have never heard Gordon Lightfoot, "Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald," like go listen to it. Obviously, right after the podcast. But no, it's just a badass song. And then from there, like imagine like a 10 or 11-year-old kid getting into Gordon Lightfoot. It's just like it's kind of a weird gig. But
yeah, well, I mean that's one of the things about that song is I think a lot of people don't know is the reason he actually wrote the song. The funny thing is that it was a typo, I mean, it was this really bad wreck on the lake. A lot of people don't realize how bad the water gets out there. Mm-hmm. These are big lakes. Like if you took all the water out of Lake Superior and just spread it over the continental United States, it would put it under 5 feet of water. That's one lake.
Holy shit.
Yeah. It's over 1,300 feet deep. They're massive. The waves that took down that ship that day, they were over 35 feet high.
Yeah.
And this is in 1975. So it's like, it's in recent memory. And at the time, like when this tragedy happened, like nobody knew what happened to that ship because these waves were so big, they snapped the thing in half and it went down so fast that they didn't even get to put out an SOS. They knew they were in trouble. They knew the storm was bad, and they had another freighter coming after them, like following them, but they were maybe 10 miles behind or something like that.
Yeah.
They were in radio contact with them, and then all of a sudden they weren't. They were just gone. And that thing was like 2 football fields long. It's a huge ship. Yeah. And it just snapped in two and disappeared in seconds. And I think it was like 29 people died on that. So when that happened, they printed it obviously in the newspaper, and And it was Gordon Lightfoot saw that they had spelled the name wrong, and he thought it was kind of disrespectful to the families of the men that died on that ship. And so that was kind of what inspired him to write the song. It was a misspelling in a newspaper.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they said that. Well, from the song, it was like it weighed 26,000 tons more than the ship weighed empty.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's freaking insane.
Yeah, big ship. Yeah,
26,000 times more. Or was it tons?
Tons.
Yeah, tons more.
Yeah,
that's insane. And like two football fields. Cargo. Yeah, 2 football fields long.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about it, that's like what they ship across, and they don't even go across the Atlantic, to ship stuff. They go through the Pacific because the Atlantic's like a lot rougher. So if you think about that, this is on a freaking lake, people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They call them lakes, but if you ever been out on one, you wouldn't think of it as a lake. Yeah.
It's the ocean. Like I grew up in northeastern Ohio. Like you can't see from one side of the lake to the other. It's
no, even if you're just crossing over, like Lake Michigan's, even a narrower lake. It's not anywhere near as big as Lake Superior where that ship went down. But even on that lake, if you're crossing over, like on a ferry, like you can take a ferry from Muskegon to Milwaukee, and if you're on that ferry, it takes hours to get from one side to the other, and like less than an hour into the trip, you can't see anything but water everywhere you look. There's no land in sight, and you're just hours out there on the water, speeding through the water, and there's just nothing.
It's like going on a fishing charter.
They're huge lakes.
Yeah. No, that's freaking insane, man.
Yeah.
So what I want to change gears a little bit. What
we kind of got off on the.
I got off on a little bit of tangent,
Lightfoot
but
song,
I'm like a big Gordon Lightfoot nerd.
I'm a big lakes nerd. So that kind of we hit a
no, that's really cool. So I want to go back to your music a little bit. So this Thump Keg, is that like available on Spotify or iTunes? Is that available anywhere?
Well, the funny thing is like it normally wouldn't have been, because again, I did that when I was like in my early 20s, and so it normally wouldn't have been. But our banjo player, he found an old live recording of it and he put it on SoundCloud. So you go on SoundCloud, you can find Thump Keg now. It's just a live recording of us playing in his basement, but it doesn't sound anything like the stuff I'm playing nowadays. I was young and I was also, just shouting stuff out. Like, it was punk rock. We were taking old bluegrass tunes and playing them like they were punk rock songs. It was fun.
You should get back into that. I got a buddy that he's local here to where I live, and he does like he's in a bluegrass band. Well, bluegrass / country. It's pretty good. The lead singer sounds like the dude from the Black Crowes. So it's actually really good music. And like I grew up with a kid, and I was like, oh, he's in a band, cool. You started a high school band, but it's like they're actually pretty damn good, and they're releasing, I think, their third album right now. So I can't wait to download that. But
nice, hell yeah! What's the name of that?
It's 6 Time Losers.
All right, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Yeah. No, I'm just wondering because like I got into I get into like weird musical kicks every once in a while, and when you mentioned bluegrass, I listened to something called Gangsta Grass. And it's like it's rap music. I've never heard of that. It's rap music with bluegrass. And
nice, okay.
So have you ever seen the TV show on FX called Justified?
No, I don't think I have. No.
Okay, so like at the opening of that music, or the opening intro to that episode, or like that series or whatever, it was written by a guy by the name of Tone Z. He's based out of New York, and he took rap and bluegrass and mixed them together.
No kidding.
And it just. It makes it so like if you're on Spotify or whatever, like look up Gangsta Grass. It's actually pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that.
Yeah, there's like I think 10 songs. There's an album out. It's pretty good. But so when you said you mixed punk rock and bluegrass together, I want to check that out because I got one of my daytime welding instructors. He's like a huge fan of Trampled by Turtles, and I still haven't heard them yet. But I need to give them a listen.
Yeah, they're not bad. Yeah, they're like. I don't know how to put them. I mean, they definitely got like a inspired by bluegrass kind of sound, but almost more like a college rock kind of sound, but mixed in with that kind of folk bluegrass type stuff. But it's good.
So they were
good songs. Yeah,
they were actually playing, I think, the night after Fab Tech. So I think they were playing like right there in Chicago. Yeah, because my buddy. My buddy, my buddy Ismail, Jesus, from Outlaw Leather. He posted a photo on Instagram of I guess like the concert hall or the venue.
Yeah.
But it was like all kind of lit up nighttimey type photo or whatever, and he took a picture of it. And I was like, holy shit, Trampled by Turtles is playing Friday, or like Friday or Saturday or something like that. And I was flying out Friday morning, and I was like, shit, man, like if I was in town, I'd love to go see that.
Yeah. Well, especially if you'd never even heard him before, like getting a chance to see him live first, that would be a hell of a thing.
Yeah, that'd be kind of neat. I just went to I went to a Shinedown concert last Saturday, and like I was never a fan of Shinedown because they just play them over and over on the radio down here. So I was never a fan of them until I seen them open for Five Finger Death Punch, and the lead singer of Shinedown just puts on a hell of a show and like gets the audience engaged and stuff like that. So like right after that, I was like, yeah, let me check him out a little bit further. And I mean, like he's a very talented dude. So I think seeing like, a group in concert that you've never heard before, it's going to give you kind of like a different outlook.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's some of my favorite bands are bands that I've never heard of before. I just saw open for somebody, and then it's all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute. Who the hell are you? Where'd you come from?
I went to a Soulfly concert back when I was in like high school, and like the band that opened for them was Head PE. And as soon as I got done, with the concert, like I got right onto iTunes because that was big back in the day. That's where you got all your music, if it wasn't on a CD. And like I downloaded a couple of their albums. That was pretty good.
Oh yeah.
So I think seeing a band up front live in concert first, that should, if you can, let that be your first exposure to that band.
It'll definitely give you a different feel for it.
Yeah.
That's how I found out about Gogo Bordello. That's good.
I haven't heard that one yet. No, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Oh man, that's good. That's like gypsy punk music. That's so good.
You said Gogo Bordello?
Gogol. So Gogol, I believe. Gogol Bordello. Yeah. And they're the guy's nuts. Like when they were when I saw him when they were opening up, like he had these two women who were just playing random instruments, like percussion instruments, as they like danced around the stage instead of like just having the drummer in the back. And so like one of them has like this marching band drum, like a big bass drum on a harness, banging on it, and she pulls that off and she throws it into the audience, and people catch this thing, and it's just like, holy shit, she just threw a marching band bass drum at us. And and then she takes like a 10-foot running leap off the stage, lands on the thing, and starts banging on it while people are passing around. It was one of the most amazing shows I've ever seen in my life.
I gotta check that out. That sounds kind of like Jenna Torture.
Oh yeah.
Which I've never heard their music, but I've seen them like videos of them in concert. That looks like a pretty damn insane show.
Who was that? What was the name of it?
Shit. What the hell is it? Damn, I just said it. Jenna Torture.
Gotcha. I never heard of that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, so I played a welding safety video for my students. There's a grinder safety video that's available on YouTube, and one of the cut scenes of like grinder safety is Jenna Tortura, and she's wearing like a I don't know, kind of like a underwear made out of steel.
Oh, and
she's like
I know
running.
what you're talking about the spark shows.
She's running a grinder across it. And I was like, like I always have to fast forward that part. Like when I got students in the class. But that's Jenna Tortura.
Gotcha. Nice. Okay. Yeah, those shows are great. Yeah. I've never. I didn't even realize that there was a band out there that did that kind of stuff. But yeah, I love those performances with the like throwing sparks up the
that's kind of like
metal wearables and stuff. Yeah, those are
that's
great.
That's kind of like Rammstein. Like they won't, from what I've heard, they won't play back in the U.S. anymore because they can't do the pyrotechnic show that they can do in Europe. So they like practice this stage performance and stuff like that, and they can do it all over Europe. But as soon as they come into the United States, they're like, oh no, you gotta have a hot works permit. The safety guy comes out and he's like, you can't do all this. So they're like, fine. If we can't do the show we want to do, we're not going to play in the U.S. So, I think ever since Family Values tour in like 1994, they haven't performed back in the United States. I could be wrong. Don't fact check me on that one, but
okay, I won't.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked for them, and they never play back in the U.S. since then. So,
yeah, to be honest with you, I haven't heard of them since high school. Yeah, it's been a minute.
So we got off on another tangent. I wanted to talk.
We did. Yeah,
I wanted to talk about FabTech. So FabTech Chicago was like your first FabTech. Like, what was that experience like? What did you expect kind of going in, and what did you like? What was the outcome of that?
Well, I mean, I knew what it would be. I've heard of it before. I knew what it was, but the thing that I guess really the best way to put it is I knew what it was going to be, but I didn't know what it was going to be. I spent every day for years putting my nose to the grindstone, doing what I love to do, and trying to, work my way forward. I thought this is the way to get from A to B. This is the way to get ahead. And then showing up at FabTech and meeting everybody that I met and starting to talk to people, I started to realize there's this whole community, this whole family of people that are doing what I'm doing that I didn't even know existed before. And all I would have had to do is go to one of these shows years ago, and it would have helped me to move forward. And I just never even realized that that was there.
Right.
I mean, I started talking to people that were doing all these different things, and I started making these connections with people. And I said, wait a minute, okay, you're doing this. Like, that's great. I would love to learn more about this. Oh, you're doing this over here. This is, and so it was more the people that were there than the companies for me personally, because obviously I'm not, running, if I was running like a branch of GM or something and we needed a bunch of equipment, sure, go there and you can do that. But at the same time, that's all I really thought it was. It's just people trying to sell equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what it is. It's drawing in people that are in this business, in this industry, for any and every reason that they could possibly be in it for. And so you start to meet people and make these connections. And within just a couple of days, I realized, like, the more people I met, the more I felt like I was kind of like screwing up at life. I was like, man, I should have been here years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by AHP Welders, the perfect machine to get into welding. You can get a great machine for under $1,000 right now and start your journey into welding and finally put all those skills you're learning on YouTube into a practical application. Check out ahpwelds.com and find the best machine for you. I've used these machines myself and they perform great for the price point. That's ahpwelds.com. We're also brought to you by Strong Hand Tools, makers of heavy-duty welding tables, toggle clamps, magnets, and fabrication tools. If you're a welding student and you want to register your school for a free gift package, head on over to stronghandtools.com/arcjunkies to register. And be sure to visit them at the SEMA show, booth number 37157, November 2nd through the 5th. Now let's get back into the show. And that's kind of the thing. And I think you came, as weird as it sounds, like, because like COVID had a hell of an impact. So you didn't get to experience the entire FabTech experience.
That's what I kept hearing, but it was so massive. I can't imagine it being any bigger than that.
Oh, dude, it literally takes, like, you could walk this year's FabTech. You could walk that entire show, at least on A side. You could walk that in a day, no problem.
On one side, yeah, but there's like, what, 3 sides?
Well, there was a whole other, I think, B hall is where they do like shaping and metal forming and sheet metal breaking and like a lot of like big industrial equipment. Yeah. But like just the welding side, the welding, fitting, fabrication side, if it was like full scale, it probably would have taken, you wouldn't have been able to clear that entire hall for probably the first 2.5 days. That's why it's
just the one hall.
Just the one hall, just side A. So that's why insane, that's why it's usually 4 days there. Because I think when it comes to Atlanta, and I'm not sure about Vegas, but like Atlanta, it's a 3-day deal. But when it goes to Chicago, it's a 4-day deal.
Yeah.
It's Monday through Thursday instead of Monday through Wednesday. And it's just that big. So like where they had the massive, where they had the AWS trailer, that's kind of like the halfway point lengthwise.
Yeah, of the building. Yeah.
Of the building, because it goes much further, and then it drops down in elevation, and then there's like what they called the dungeon, where they had like the smaller companies. But like all the smaller companies were there this year. So they were like right there front and center. So it's really good, like networking and to make contacts and all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I just want to get your point, your opinion, like going into that first year, was that beneficial to make that trip?
Well, it was absolutely beneficial to me for sure, yeah. I mean, it was one of those things where I honestly think it would be beneficial to anyone. But for me specifically, it was beneficial because the show would literally come out 2 days prior. And so I'm walking in there and here's all these companies who I already use their equipment. I mean, I'm using old stuff because I bought it, when it was 20 years old, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like trying to, keep things going. So, I'm buying the most affordable stuff I can, but I still want the best stuff because it's the stuff that keeps working. So like, I run hypotherm plasma cutters, for example. Well, they're dinosaurs, the ones I've got. Like when they were trying to figure out what machine I had, they were like, "Oh my God, those are really old." I'm like, yeah, I know. But being there right after the show, it was it opened doors for partnerships with these companies that I never even really thought about before. Being on the show, talking to Tom, talking to Ray, they both had partnerships with other companies, and I didn't really realize that was a thing where it's just like, oh, we're just going to give you free equipment. I mean, you think about that stuff, but I never really actually thought about it as something that I could do. So having the show, all of a sudden you're in a position like that And I didn't even realize that when I got there. I only went there because, like, Tom and Ray and Frank, they were, everybody's going there and they're saying, oh, come on, Ivan. Like David Madero, he's talking to me saying, Ivan, you got to come to the show. It's in Chicago. You're in Michigan. It's right there. And so, okay, yeah, I've heard of it. And all you guys are going to be there. I haven't seen some of you in a while. So, since we filmed it. So, of course, I'm going to come down. And so, got a cheap train ticket. I mean, you can buy a train ticket for $30. Took a train down to Chicago. And when I got there, I was just talking to, somebody, but I think I was talking to Ray when I first got there, talking to her, just joking around about sleeping on a park bench or something. Like it didn't really matter where I ended up. And we were standing in front of the Hypotherm booth because they had, brought her there this year. And I just heard that over my shoulder. And next thing I know, Hypotherm, someone from Hypotherm has tapped me on the shoulder saying, hey, we got your hotel room.
Oh, shit.
He's like, you're kidding me. And you guys got me a hotel room? Like, okay. And they're like, oh, yeah, and we're going to get you some equipment, too. I was like, what? You're kidding me. And so then I started walking around the show and realized, yeah, there's opportunities here. Like, it's something I've been working a long time towards. And to just all of a sudden find yourself in a position where you didn't even realize you were there. You just closed your eyes and open them back up, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm there. That was surreal. Yeah, so totally different fab tech experience, or totally different fab tech experience for me than I imagined it would be for most in that situation.
That's really freaking cool. Like, I'm getting like goosebumps and shit now.
It was
That's
wild.
That's fucking badass.
It was really wild, yeah.
But I mean, that goes back to like what we were talking about earlier on the show, is like you kept pushing forward and grinding and like taking the next step and taking the next step. And like this company shut down, and you started working for another company, and that one shut down, and you started working for another one. And then eventually you opened your own shop and started doing your own metal sculpting the way that you wanted to do it. Yeah. And then the next thing you know, you're on freaking Netflix, and it's transcribed in 30 different languages and subtitles and shit. And like,
yeah, it's crazy.
Now you're getting sponsorships through Hypotherm, and it just comes back to, equal, like the amount of effort you put in is the results that you're going to get back. So if you half-ass a lot of things in life, you're going to get half-ass results. But if you put in 110%, you're going to get, you're going to get that back in tenfold.
Yeah, always use your full ass. Yeah.
Yeah, equal effort equals equal outcome. A lot of people want to like sit on their ass and just kind of like do the bare minimum. Fake it till you make it, and it's like, no, you can't do that. You got to be on like all the time. You got to be pushing forward and working towards your goals.
Absolutely, 100%. But even still, I think there is something about the fake it till you make it thing, because I'll be honest, one of the first big jobs I got for a public sculpture, at the time I'm young and I'm thinking, okay, they're not going to take me seriously, and I'm going to be proposing them something that I'm not going to be making a lot of money on. And so how am I going to convince them that I can actually pull this off, the amount of money they have? So I went to Walmart and I bought a pair of black pants for $5 and bought a white shirt button up, and I bought a white tie and rolled the sleeves up, but pulled the collar down. So I kind of looked a little like somebody who might make things, but at the same time, kind of still clean cut, and took the tie and set a bunch of my drafting tools on it and spray painted it blue on top of it. So I had a bunch of little gears and, calipers and things on it, and put that on, and just went in there and just told them, look, I'm the guy to do this job. I've got the experience to do this. I know how I'm going to do this. This is my design. This is everything all worked out. I've got this. And at the same time, like, I knew walking into that room, and you got, like the people that are like, running Michigan in this room. This is the capital that I was at. And it was just, it was surreal, because if you just put yourself forward and just say, I know what I'm doing, I got this, and believe that yourself, then yeah, I mean, to an extent it is kind of faking it till you make it, because I didn't have a degree in engineering. I didn't have a ton of experience doing this kind of stuff, but I just was like, no, I got this. And
right.
And then they kind of bought it. And after I got the job, I remember telling somebody who was there in that meeting, like, that tie I was wearing, I spray painted that like a half an hour before I got there. Like, so yeah, I mean, you do what you got to do, and sometimes, sometimes you got to fake it to convince somebody that you got this.
Right, but you had the skills and the talent. You just didn't have that, that portfolio.
Yeah, I'd never done anything like that before. So yeah, you gotta kind of pretend. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I got this. I could do this. Yeah. But at the same time, when I got the job, I was like, can I do this though?
That's
then you got to figure it out. Yeah.
when I did a lot of like I ran a mobile welding business for 2 years, and that's kind of how I got a lot of my work. I was like, oh yeah, definitely I can do this. But like, I had the skills, talent, ability, and the resources to get it done. I just needed somebody to believe in me, or at least buy into the bullshit that I was feeding them to get it done. And that puts you to that next level. So I mean, you're faking it to an extent, but you've got that skill set. You've got that ability, you've got the passion, you've got the drive. You can't fake work ethics. Because like if you would have went in there, even if you would have dazzled them with brilliance and baffled them with bullshit and like didn't deliver on the product, you'd have been screwed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it wouldn't have been hard to do.
Yeah. You could have. I
almost did screw myself on that one, to be honest. There was I ended up having 3 hernias during the building of that, and because of the deadline, I didn't have enough time to take off to get surgery to get them fixed. So
shit,
I was working 23 hours a day, and what I would do is I would stop for an hour, and I'd sleep for an hour, then I'd wake up, I'd shove my guts back in and take a belt and strap them all down, and then wake up and go back to work. And I did that for 3 months straight to make that deadline. And then I went and got surgery.
Holy fuck, dude.
Yeah. So I almost did bite off more than I could chew, but I'm good at biting off more than I can chew. I mean, the show proves that.
Yeah.
The thing is if you're not pushing yourself farther than you can go, you'll never know how far you can go. You'll never get any better, because at the end of the day, if you think you know everything, you're never going to learn anything. So
exactly.
If you're always trying to learn more, if you're always trying to push yourself farther, if you're always trying to figure something out that you haven't tried to figure out before, that's the difference between somebody who's good and somebody who's great.
Yeah. No,
you just got to keep pushing farther.
100%. We used to have that all the time, like in the military. Like when we'd go for runs in the Marine Corps, it was like, if you're not puking, you're not putting out hard enough.
Yeah.
Like I've ran with freaking shin splints. I've got flat feet, like shin splints, back problems, twisted ankles. Like run on all that shit. Like if you can physically move, because we'd always have like a truck that would follow us for like battalion PT. Like, you don't get your ass in that truck. I mean, unless you're dying or on the verge of it, you do not get in that truck. It's a matter of like pride at that point. So very, kind of similar to what you went through. Like,
oh, totally similar. How old are you now?
I'm
curiosity.
39.
You're 39? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm 36.
Okay.
So how long do you figure it is before we just fall apart from all the stuff we did to ourselves?
Probably not long.
I make 50.
Oh yeah.
Maybe make 50. Yeah. If we're lucky.
No. I think it's, honestly, I think it's the mentality that that'll keep us running. Only because like your mind is capable of doing a lot more than your body thinks it's able to do.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. You learn that when you push it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 90% mentality, and like the fact that you ran for 3 months on a freaking hernia and like an hour of sleep a night, and throwing a belt across your waist to get shit done. That's your mind. Your mind's going to give up before your body does 100% of the time. You've got to be able to push yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's the make or break point. That's what people don't get. And I think like, especially with like the younger generation, they don't see that. They don't want to put in that effort. And I don't want to paint with a broad brush here, but like,
yeah, that's a pretty broad brush.
It is. But I've seen students come into my program and they expect everything to be given to them because they showed up for the day. And it's like, no, you've got to put out. You've got to put in the effort, and equal effort equals equal output. So if you're not putting in 100%, you can't expect 100% when you finish the program. Or, same thing when I put you out in industry. If you're not putting in 100%, you're not showing up every day on time, doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're not going to get equal outcome. I've got students that have went out into industry and they couldn't make it there because they were putting out way more than what was returning. So they opened their own business.
Yeah.
And I mean, now they're just out there kicking ass. So if you're putting out more than what you're getting back, you need to shift gears. You need to change your situation. You got to get into something different. Maybe that's the point where you need to go into business on your own.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I think one of those things is just like, I don't know, because when I was younger, when I first started doing this stuff, I remember a lot of the reason why, hanging out with old guys, were willing to teach me this stuff and interested in my interest in it was because of the fact they were getting a kick out of the fact that I was very young, just a kid, but I wanted to do this stuff so badly. I had a million questions and I was just excited about it. And I made them excited about it again for the first time in a long time. And so I think it might just be that maybe there's just never been, that many people that have that much drive and passion towards any one thing in life, because back then they used to say the same thing to me. They're like, "Oh, kids these days," and it's like, well, yeah, but your grandpa probably said, "Oh, kids these days," and his grandpa probably said, "Oh, kids these days."
Yeah, I got a buddy. We were having that exact conversation today. He's like, "Man, the world's going to shit today," and I was like, "Yeah, I get that. Like with all the politics and everything else that's going on, the pandemic, like all this shit that's going on. Like, yeah, the world's going to shit, but like." My grandfather said the same thing when he was raising my dad. My dad said the same thing when he was raising me. And now I'm saying, you're saying the same thing when you're raising your kids. Yeah, I mean, it gets shittier, but like...
but that's the whole thing is I don't really know that it is getting shittier. You see, the way I look at it, it seems to me like the world's always getting better. I remember when I was in high school, there was a tsunami. And I can't remember if it was Thailand. And I feel bad now not remembering this now, but it hit this country and it just devastated it. And at that time, that was when cell phones were like first becoming a thing, and everybody saw this. It was like you could see that suffering, you could see that pain, and everybody rushed to help. There was all these people going over there trying to help this country, people who'd never even thought about this country before, like trying to go over there and do anything they can to help because they saw that suffering. There's a certain level of empathy when you can actually see it up front. If that would have happened 50 years prior, people would have read about it in the back of a newspaper, thought, well, it sucks to live in that country, and they would have flipped to the next page. But that didn't happen then. Things seem like they're always getting worse to people who are always looking for the worst of what they see. But at the end of the day, to me, it seems like the world's always getting better. It's a roller coaster. There's hiccups. There's a lot of things that go bad. There's a lot of things that go good. But if you look at the progression over time, it seems to me like things are definitely getting better. It's just a matter of perspective.
100%. It's your outlook on life, and that's kind of what I was trying to explain to my buddy. It's like, it may seem like shit because I mean, like maybe that's what's in your news feed, but there's a lot of things you don't see, and like you were talking about, like the tsunami and everything. Like when the hurricanes came through and like decimated Haiti. Yeah. Like my Mason buddies got together and like they put together a whole bunch of supplies and they got those materials to Haiti, themselves, to help out. So I think like humanity is still there.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Things are much better than they were, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, look at like, there's a lot of progression, but then, I mean, there's a lot of things that, it may not look so great, may not, work with your beliefs and stuff like that. But look at all the great things that are going on. Yeah. And it's like everybody has their own thing. I mean, like back in the day, they had like, the Cold War and everything. And there was things that like everybody freaked out about. There was plagues back in the day. This is just like our version. But we're going to get through this. We're going to push through it with tenacity and spirit and all that stuff.
Yeah, you definitely do. You always do. And I mean, the Cold War, like that lasted forever. And when that was going on, I've heard people a little older than me saying like, they had drills where they would just hide under their desk. Can you imagine being a little kid and having somebody say, okay, this is what's going to happen when the Russians drop nukes on us. We're just going to stick our heads under our desk.
And we're going to hide under the desk.
Like I'm still going to die. So you're literally doing a drill that isn't going to help you anyways.
No.
And you're thinking to yourself, this desk isn't going to save me.
No.
We're going to die. We're doing a drill. You're running an alarm across the announcement system telling me that bombs are coming. And you do that every day. That's got to be awful as a child.
Yeah, no. The only thing you can do to prepare for a nuke is like, seriously, like put your head between your knees and kiss your ass goodbye.
Yeah.
Like a desk isn't going to stop anything.
It's not going to make much of a difference. Yeah.
No. But I mean, like that's our coronavirus. Like everybody's afraid of that right now, because the pandemic and everything that's going on. Like we're going to get through it. It's going to, shit's going to happen. We're just going to have to like grind through it. Just like your story, you just got to keep pushing forward until it's not a problem anymore.
Yeah. Some things take a little longer than others. And some countries deal with things a little better than others when it comes to the whole pandemic thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, time heals all wounds. It'll get better.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So like changing gears again, where do you draw your inspiration from? Because like you were talking about how you do your sculptures and stuff. Like you're to the point in your life where you can say, this is the type of work I want to do. You can take it or leave it. Like, where do you draw your inspiration? Where do you come up with these ideas and stuff from?
Well, a lot of it for me has to do with inspirations from nature. So when it comes to the mechanical work that I do, I'm not really a big fan of doing like abstract mechanical pieces where it's just a bunch of moving parts that look neat together. I want to try and mimic emotion in nature. And so I'm drawing from that. So I want to try and like the whale that I made, for example. What I was doing was just watching whale swim and trying to figure out, okay, at this point, this head's at this angle. This looks like a hinge point in the spine. It comes back to this point, and here's this point that moves this way, and it moves this way in conjunction with this part at this point in time, and trying to take one rotating motion and turning it into a complex linear motion that actually resembles what that creature would look like in the wild. Like, I just love to do that. I'm just really, it really pushes me forward, and I can see myself progressively getting better at that as I go. And I just really, I draw a lot of happiness out of that. And so that's something that I really love to do. It's not something I make a living at right now, but again, I'm hoping that I can start to push more into that. And yeah, that's even with the work that I do that isn't kinetic, like oil painting. I love painting mushrooms for some reason. I'll just go out in the woods and take photographs of mushrooms in the woods in the spring and in the fall, and then do oil paintings of them. I just sold one of those. And so yeah, just nature in general, just the same reason, like some people like to collect stamps, Mm-hmm. I like to collect skills. I want to know how to do things. I want to know how the world works. I could sit and watch ants carrying aphids on grapevines for hours just to try and understand exactly what's going on there. I just want to be able to understand things. And so it's the same thing with building something like that, because I'm having to pay such close attention to that animal that I'm trying to understand that motion. I'm looking at it, dissecting it in a way. You start to learn stuff about the anatomy and the movement of that creature, and you start to just have like this whole new level of respect and understanding for it. And I just I draw a lot of pleasure out of that. That's
pretty cool. So like, what, just because you caught my attention with the mushrooms, like what type of mushrooms do you guys have up where you're at?
Oh, Michigan?
Yeah.
Oh, all types. Morels are the big ones.
I was going to say, that's like
yeah,
I've never had a morel mushroom. My aunt collects them. She's up in northeastern Ohio. Like, I don't think we have, like, anything in Florida, like, you don't want to eat, because it's like it's a gamble and risk. Like, anything natural growing in Florida, like,
Yeah. In Florida, the mushrooms eat you, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much like you're going to gamble and lose, Like, I heard a whole episode on the Joe Rogan podcast about the Amanita muscaria mushroom, and, like, how Christmas was kind of, like, derived from that type of mushroom because it represents and symbolizes Santa Claus, and it's like the red and white type of mushroom.
The red and white,
yeah. It's the one you see on Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
So I thought that whole episode was like really, really good. It was very intriguing, like the history behind it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, it's less really about. It's just mushrooms pop up so quick. They have so many different colors, so many different textures, and they're growing up through detritus, because they're coming out of the mycelium, and so they're just like, they're fruiting bodies. So here's these like fruiting bodies popping up, and they're gone so quick. They're only there for a few days, and so you're snapping this picture or you're sketching this drawing out for a painting, and as you're doing that, like, you're catching light coming in through the woods. There's just so many different dynamic things going on that just makes for a really beautiful painting, in my opinion. And you're capturing this really small moment in time. And I just really like that. Plus, just, the appreciation for mushrooms in general. I mean, they, when you had that split, that would have been, couldn't even tell you. Could have told you before, but now it's slipping my mind. But there was a split between, like, plants and fungus, animals, all that stuff as evolution's going on. And more we're more closely related to fungus than we are to plants, but at the same time, like you share 70% of your DNA with a banana. I mean, it's just like this amazing web of life. And something like mushrooms for me, for whatever reason, is just, I think it's that quick life, that quick death, and the varieties that you get. If I wanted to paint pine trees, I go out and I find a bunch of different types of pine trees, but they're still so similar.
Mm-hmm.
If I go out and I go to paint a mushroom, I mean, there's varieties out there that are just completely different from one another. So there's all these different colors and textures to work with. There's just all these beautiful lightings, light coming through the leaves of the trees. It's just fun walking through the woods and looking for different mushrooms to paint.
Right. So do you live in a pretty like wooded area of Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're in the city, all of Michigan's pretty wooded. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been up that way
everywhere.
yet. Like we popped into Michigan, like because so fun fact, the only thing that keeps Michigan from sinking into the Great Lakes is the fact that Ohio sucks.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
I could say that because I'm from Ohio originally, but no, I love Ohio. But like I've only popped into Michigan like very short trip. My stepdad's got some family in there that borders right there with Michigan, so we popped in there. But like I haven't been through that entire like a great deal of that state.
If you really want to see Michigan and like see like how beautiful it can be, I would say get up into the UP, the Upper Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, get around like Munising, for example, the pictured rocks, like 200-foot rock cliffs. It's all sandstone, and water comes through the rocks, and it runs down the face of those rocks, carrying all these minerals with it. So it paints the rocks with different colors from these minerals.
Okay.
And it's absolutely gorgeous. There's waterfalls just dumping off into Lake Superior off these cliffs, and it's just it's unreal. It looks like something out of a storybook. Like it just, yeah. And there's people that live in the middle of Michigan where everything's flat and there's cornfields, and you wouldn't even know something like that existed. But yeah, if you're looking for the beauty in Michigan, you're gonna find it in the Upper Peninsula. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to come check that out. The original host of the podcast is from Detroit, and like
Okay,
I keep meaning to try and like get up there because he's got like the original Arc Junkie sign that was built.
Yeah, nice.
By
Cool.
Russell built, and so I want to try and pop up there and pick that up and like maybe like check out Michigan while I'm there.
Well, and Detroit's a really cool city too because it's it's been through hell and back, and a lot of the stuff that's like gone on and is going on there, like you can see that history. I mean, Michigan's one of the only, I think it is the only state that's flown under like 5 different flags. Like it's been flown under the French flag, the Spanish flag. Like everybody kept taking over Michigan because it was a way to get to inland America, from the ocean. And so because of those lakes, and so you had like all this stuff happening. So the history here is really rich because of that. And you see that a lot in Detroit. I mean, that's why all these auto manufacturers were setting up shop, because you had a way to get iron ore in and out. You had a way to get all this different stuff moved around on ships. And so,
right.
And it was the same way back in the day with military, like back before there was even like a booming economy there through manufacturing. It was the same thing. It was like, we can get in here, we can attack here. These are good places to build forts. There's still old forts up there on islands and things in those lakes that you can go and check out where like stuff was built in the 1600s, like before there even was in America. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I didn't realize that was all up there, but like even when I go up to like,
there's a lot of history here. Yeah.
Even when I go to Cleveland, you can kind of like see the mark that Carnegie and Rockefeller kind of left behind during the Industrial Revolution, and like to go up there and see all that stuff. It's just like, and as a kid, I was never really fascinated with history. And like now that I've, maybe it's an age thing, but like as I get older, I can start seeing and appreciating like the history that like I kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of gaffed off back when I was in high school. It's like, that's really cool. But like once you start getting into it, you're like, damn, like people did some stuff. It was like incredible. They did so much with so little back in the day. Yeah. And like built an empire. And it's just insane.
Yeah, and even just like trying to figure out how to do something, that's really fascinating to me. That's why I hate those shows like was it Ancient Aliens, stuff like that? Because it's always like, oh, aliens helped them build this thing. It's like, no, you have no, like you don't understand what you're doing. This is the most disrespectful thing you could possibly do by making the show, because you're taking this amazing thing that people figured out a way to do something so brilliantly, and you're just discounting it by going, oh, it must have been extraterrestrials.
Yeah, had to have been aliens.
How could they possibly do this?
Yeah, humans couldn't figure out how to do that with a plumb bob and a string line and
exactly. Oh,
water
you
level.
Totally can. Yeah, I mean that head sculpture, when I put that in, that funny you bring up plumb line. Like we actually, that big 30-foot thing, it goes off the edge of a bridge, and then that gear set comes down. We didn't have like CNC, or anything like that here at the shop when I was building that. Like we had to make all that by hand. And when we went out there to measure the stuff to make sure pieces were going to fit and know where to put that huge pole that drops down on the other side of that bridge to hold up that gear set, that 30-foot long piece, we just used a weight and a string.
Yeah.
and it fit. Like you can do a lot with very little, and just a little bit of knowledge.
Yeah. I've hung up many a buildings with, a string line with a 3/4 inch nut tied to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just checking for plumb. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's really neat. So like, I noticed the piece that you did in the first episode was, the guy was hammering on an anvil and bringing your face up. Like, is blacksmithing something that you're into, or something you've done in the past, or you currently do?
Yeah. Again, like I love knowing how to do different things. I'm always trying to, find different ways, put different irons in the fire, and sometimes literally. And that was a good example of that. Like, I've been blacksmithing for a while. It was something that I wanted to do. And so I just started trying to get into it. Just started out with a small coal forge, and then I built my own forge for gas and started running that. But yeah, blacksmithing is great because it gives you the opportunity to make things that you wouldn't have been able to necessarily make before. And I'm not just talking about knives and stuff that's kind of fun to do on the side for me, but it was more along the lines of just the manipulation of metal. Like all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I can make a spring.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can forge things. Now I can make stuff that I didn't have the capability of making before by just welding, because now I can forge things. And so then you start trying to, come up with different ways of using that. It's just more knowledge about the materials that you're trying to use, more ways of manipulating those materials.
Right. So have you looked into like any of the clubs in your area?
Clubs?
Yeah. So like, they probably got them for every state, but like Florida, we have the Florida Association of Blacksmith Artists. So it's FABA.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like
they have one here, yeah.
The first Saturday of every month, they come in they determine a location at like some pioneer historical grounds or something like that, and they bring us in and like they show like, okay, this week we're forging out a set of tongs, like, so they'll show you step 1, 2, and 3, and you go through there and you kind of repeat the process, heat, beat, repeat, kind of like my buddy Dab says, and over the course of like 1 or 2 weekends, you build a set of tongs. And like this weekend, the October 8th is like their entire state of Florida. So like all these different sections, I think there's like 4 or 5 throughout the state of Florida. They all convene up there in like Jacksonville, and they're going to have like a 3 or 4 day event, which I'm not going to be able to make it. But I was just wondering if you had anything like that up there in Michigan, where you guys can collectively get together and blacksmith and forge and all that.
Yeah, we definitely do. There's a community around anything, and there's a great community around that. There's actually like one old farm that buys coal in bulk. So if you're doing stuff the old way where you're using a coal forge, you can go to this old farm, and they have a bucket there, and you pay this much a bucket, and you scoop up your own coal and put it in your bucket that you brought, or put it in your trash can or whatever you have there to get your coal, and then put the stuff down and put the money in a little wooden box and then leave. And it's just beautiful, middle of the woods, scenic farm. And yeah, there's an entire community here around that. And it's literally the same thing that you're describing to me. As you're saying all that, I'm thinking like, yeah, I wonder if it is like that in every state, because I never would have guessed they had something like that in Florida. But yeah, they definitely do up here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you think it was hot enough without like standing next to a coal forge and like beating on red hot steel, but apparently it's not. So
no, there's something really cool about doing that. When you're forging stuff and you're trying to make something, especially looking at the way that somebody used to make something, like if you built something, back in the day out of wood or something, and you had nails in it, every one of those nails had to be handmade. Somebody sat down on an anvil and made those nails one after another.
Yeah.
And so even doing that, like even just trying to make some nails real quick when you're learning how to blacksmith, it's like you not only get an appreciation for it, but you start to look at the material that you're working with in a different way. Mm-hmm. And once you start to look at it in a different way, you can start to come up with different ideas of what you could possibly do with that, not only with that old technology, but with the material itself.
Yeah.
It's just another way to change your perspective on something. Yeah.
It's funny you bring up nails, because like I heard back in the day, like apprentices with, when they stayed with blacksmiths, they would have to make like 5 pounds before breakfast. And then, and then the fact that like when the pioneers and the settlers came through, like when they put their houses together, they would actually burn the house down and collect all the nails, because the nails were so valuable that they needed them, when they were like going across the, wherever to like put their next house together, they needed those nails back. So they just burn the house to the ground, let it burn to ash, and go through and pick up all the nails.
I never heard that. That's crazy. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's the basic thing that you can start doing as a blacksmith is like making nails. And I watched a guy make a nail one day, and it's like, holy shit. Like, that's a lot of freaking work. And you need special tools to build that nail. So I think that's kind of cool. That's where I'm going to start off. My grandfather gave me an anvil
nice.
a while back.
What do you got?
I have no idea. I can't find any markings on it.
Really?
But one thing I want to do is refinish the anvil. Mm-hmm. So I talked to some of the guys over at the blacksmithing, and some of them were like, oh yeah, you shouldn't do that unless you really know how to weld. And it's like, I've got a pretty good idea how to weld.
Yeah, you kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah, I got a good idea. So there's something called the Rob Gunther method. So I got to research the Rob Gunther method because I want to take this thing. You have to heat treat it to a certain, like 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and then there's certain electrodes you want to use to weld on it. Once I get all that done, I have a surfacing machine at the school that I want to go through and just kind of surface.
So you
just
put a new face on it.
Yeah, because it's got it's definitely got a lot of wear marks on it, and I know that adds character. And everybody's like, oh, you shouldn't mess with it, but it's like
no.
It needs a little bit. It needs a little bit of work because I want to be able to like put square angles and put it, reset the shoulder and all that stuff on there. So.
Yeah, character's fine for a lot of ornament. With an anvil, you want a surface you can use.
Yeah.
You want those edges. You want a good flat face. You don't want something sway backed and beat with a hammer for the last 200 years. Yeah. No.
So that's something I think I'm going to start working on during like my Christmas break because I'll actually have time to dedicate and sit down and kind of work through and do that stuff.
Oh yeah, nice, man. Yeah, I don't have anything like that here. I got a couple anvils that could actually use that done to them. Maybe I'll come down and visit you.
Come on down, man. If you ever get to Florida, like, give me a call, dude.
Oh, yeah. I just
seriously.
throw these anvils over my shoulders, man. I'll head on down. Yeah. Stick my thumb out and find my way to you.
There you go. Throw it in the back of the truck. As soon as you get to Orlando, just give me a call. I'll guide you in.
Hell yeah, man.
Well, shit. Ivan, it was a blast talking to you, man. I really appreciate, you taking the time out of your day. I know you're like a national celebrity now. Things are picking up. So I appreciate you making the time for little old me to come in and chat on the podcast. It was great meeting you at the Fab Tech. And if you plan on going to Fab Tech 2022 down there in Atlanta, let me know because I want to commission you to tattoo me if you're still doing that and if you can bring your gear with you.
I'll be there. I'll bring my gear and I will tattoo you.
Okay. And I'll I'll let you do dealer's choice. You're the artist. I'll put the whole ball in your court.
Oh yeah.
You've got a pretty half-ass idea about what I do and what I'm passionate about. So if you could revolve it around welding some way, all right. we'll get after it.
We can do that. Yeah.
All right, man.
All right. Thanks
for coming on the show, bud.
Thanks for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for you this week. I hope you all are enjoying the show and ask that if you are, please share it with a friend, coworker, classmate, or anyone that you think would enjoy it. And don't forget to swing by the all-new ARC Junkies website, arc-junkies.podsite.io. You can now listen to full episodes, see a list of the supporters of the show, and also find all of the ARC Junkies hats, shirts, and hoodies. Thanks once again for all the support. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.